Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Did everyone just hear that introduction? Do I need to play that again? I want you to listen to it carefully. Listen to the exact words used in that intro.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Did everyone hear that? I mean, did you really hear that? If you're taking notes, I want you to write down the words of that intro. I'm going to play it one more time. Really listen to it.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
I know it's 2024, and that sounds like a radical idea, especially in the American church, but I try to look at things from a theological perspective. I try to make theology central. So this podcast is not my attempt to look at things from a Republican point of view, or a conservative point of view, or from a Democratic point of view, or from a liberal point of view. I'm here to look at things from a theological perspective because I'm attempting to make theology central. All right, that has to be. Do I need to repeat that again? Because by the conclusion of this episode, I'm going to get email after email after email, and people are going to be mad, and people are going to be angry, and they're going to argue with me, but almost inevitably, their arguments are all going to be political. It's all going to be about America, and Republicans, and conservatives, and fighting woke ideology, and we've got to do this, and it's going to be like you missed the entire point. This is a theology podcast. You remember like way back in the olden days when the church was a church and not a political arm of a particular political party? Do you remember those days? I know long time ago. Where the church was more about the cross than the American flag. Do you remember those days? I know, seems like a long time ago. But we have to establish that right out of the gate before we do anything else. Now, with that said, with that foundation being laid, good afternoon, everyone. It is Friday, May the 31st, 2024. It is currently 1:55 p.m. Central Time, and I am coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, it was Thursday, May the 30th, 2024. I was walking around my house, and I was carrying in my hand my iPad. Because on my iPad, I have downloaded on my iPad, I don't even know how many different podcasting apps, and I have subscribed to probably like 500 different podcasts. You think that's hyperbole. It really isn't. And so on my iPad, I get notifications constantly, notifications. Right, for new podcast episodes. And many of them are hourly news podcasts, right? So every hour I get all of these, new ones about, this or that or the latest headlines. Well, yesterday, I think it was around 3:57 p.m. Central Time, or as I like to refer to it, correct time, because the only correct time is the time it shows in Texas. Every other time is incorrect. All right. But it was around 3:57 p.m. Central Time. It was somewhere around that I get a notification on my iPad from one of the news podcasts that I subscribe to. And it sounded like this.
This is a CNN breaking news alert for Thursday, May 30th, 2024. The jury has reached a verdict in Donald Trump's hush money criminal trial in New York. That's what the judge in the case announced. The verdict will be read in court shortly. The 12-person jury has been considering whether Trump is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records, which were all connected to the alleged cover-up of hush money payments to an adult film star. The jury must be unanimous in its decision. Trump has pleaded not guilty to the charges in the case. We'll bring you the latest as soon as we get it, but head to CNN.com for the very latest.
Now, immediately I was like, whoa. The verdict is in. Okay. They've reached a verdict. And I'm like, okay. All right. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Almost, I don't know, within it felt like 30 seconds, a minute, that my daughter was like, hey, Dad, they've reached a verdict. Are you paying attention to this? Are you paying attention? I'm like, yeah, I'm paying attention. Okay. I'll turn something on. All right. So I started turning on the television and I'm like, okay, what is happening? What is happening? And then it was maybe it felt like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes later. Well, I got another podcast notification. I got another one. This one, I think this one came around. So the first one was like 3-something p.m. The next one came in. I was like 4. I felt like 4:10, 4:15. It maybe less than 30 minutes. It may have been around 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I don't know the exact time. I got another podcast notification. And this is what this one sounded like.
This is a CNN breaking news alert for Thursday, May 30th, 2024. A Manhattan jury found Donald Trump guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records for his part in the hush money scheme to keep adult film star Stormy Daniels from going public with allegations of an affair with the former president shortly before the 2016 election. Donald Trump is now the first president in U.S. history to be convicted of a felony. Trump has pleaded not guilty to the charges in the case and has denied the affair happened. Listen to the 6 p.m. edition of the 5 Things podcast for a full verdict breakdown, and head to CNN.com for the very latest.
And at that moment, the podcast apps just went absolutely crazy. And they've been basically absolutely crazy since then. This podcast, this, just constant updates. And then it starts, everyone has an opinion. Donald Trump has been found guilty on all accounts. He has been found guilty. And I'm like, oh, wow. And everyone, those who don't like Donald Trump, they're celebrating it. Yes, the rule of law stands. No matter who you are, you have to be held accountable. No one is above the law. Those who don't like Trump, they're celebrating. They're like, yes, this is justice. This is the way it should be. People who are rich and powerful are not above the law. This is important. This is protecting our system. This is protecting the rule of law. And then those who support Trump. Oh, this is outrageous. This is criminal. This is evil. This is the end of the world. I don't know if our country's going to be able to survive. And if they come for him, they're going to come for me. This is the end of our democracy. This is crazy. And then, there has been absolute calls to execute the judge, his family, find the jurors, kill them. It's been just like threats of violence, crazy. It's just you're talking extremes on both sides. And then, so I waited. And then the Christian podcast and Christian news started coming out. And I know this is going to come as a shock. They came out much more in defense of Donald Trump, calling into question the entire thing and almost saying that this is just outrageous and this is horrible. Many of them saying, nobody should be celebrating today. This is a day, a great tragedy has occurred. This is horrible. This is a really bad thing. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. It's a bad thing. Why? Why is this a bad thing? Because I remember Christians that if anything bad would have happened to Obama, they would have been celebrating, right? They would have been like, yeah. I mean, when Obama was elected, I remember when I announced that I was going to allow me and my daughters were going to watch him being, his inauguration, because this is the first African-American to be president. And I received emails from Christians who were like, how dare you? He's of Satan. You're ungodly. How dare you let your kids watch such trash? We should be praying for him to be killed. And I'm like, what is happening right now? What is going on? But all of a sudden today, it's a day of mourning. It's great tragedy because charges were brought against someone. They went into the court system, the legal system, and they were found guilty. And so then it's gone all over the place. You just look everywhere. So I've been hesitant. I've been just like waiting. And we're like, what do I do? 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 Right? And so I'll get another podcast notification, listen to it. I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. You can almost, within a couple of minutes, you already know which direction it's basically going to go, right? You know if they're pro-Trump or they're anti-Trump. It's going to go. And let's just be honest. This verdict, him being found guilty, even if he was to go to prison, those who love Trump are going to support Trump. Trump could blow up a school bus of elementary children and Trump supporters would be like, those kids they were probably Democrats. They probably needed to be killed. Okay, maybe that's a little hyperbole, but they're still going to support him basically no matter what. And those who hate Trump, he could jump off a bridge into the water because a school bus went over the bridge and the kids are in the bus drowning. He could jump off the bridge, go into the water, save all the kids. And those who hate Trump would be like, oh, give me a break. Yeah, he saved kids just because it's all about him. Who cares about the kids, right? Okay, I know, hyperbole. But the point is, if you hate Trump, you hate Trump. And if you love Trump, you love Trump. It's the most divisive, divided thing ever. It's hard to find anyone who can just be logical and reasonable. Everyone just goes to these extremes with him. So I'm like, okay, so what can I do? Well, I could sit here and grab audio from this source or this source. I could say when Trump made this claim after the trial, when he talked to the press, this is not accurate and this is not true. But Trump, anytime Trump talks, you could turn on the microphone and spend an hour going through all of his falsehoods and just absolute lies. But then the minute you correct those lies, then people get mad at you because how dare you call him a liar? He's telling the truth. And so no matter what Trump says, someone's going to get mad at you. So I'm like, I could do that. But that's been those who don't like Trump. There's plenty of podcasts out there who will go and try to fact check all of his lies, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anyone's opinion. All right. It doesn't opinion. So if I try to do that, well, there's already people doing that. If I turn on the microphone to try to support Trump and defend Trump, there's already all kinds of podcasts doing that. But whether I would go after Trump or defend Trump, the reality is that would be approaching this entire thing from much more a political ideology or a political ideology. That's what it would be. And you know what my feelings are about that. The biggest problem in the American church right now is not theological. It's the hijacking of the church by politics. It's political ideology who has so infiltrated the American church that we justify our politics by kind of merging. We've taken our theology and politics and merged it together. We call it Christianity, but it's some mutated hybrid monster that everyone should be scared of. It's no longer Christianity. It's this mixture of politics and Christianity into this weird mutated abomination. And I don't know what it is. And so many Christians are so politicized that you can't even really have a theological discussion with them. They use the Bible simply to defend or support their political ideology. It's so just insane what has occurred. So you know how I feel about that. I've said it before. The church has so sold itself, almost it's prostituted itself to a political party, that the church is no longer even a spiritual institution. It's just an arm of a political party. We've prostituted, the church saw the direction of the culture, and we don't like the direction of the culture. And instead of standing against it biblically or spiritually, we said we're going to sell ourselves to whichever political party will then allow us to try to change the tide of the culture through political means, through passing bills or passing laws or whatever the case may be. The church abandoned a spiritual approach to try to find a political solution. So the church now is so connected to Trump, so connected to Republicans, that many will hate Christianity, not on the basis of Jesus, not on the basis of the cross, not because of God or because of holiness, but because they see the church as nothing more than an arm of the Republican Party. And that is damaging to Christianity. We should not be associated with any political party. We should be pursuing a spiritual approach. We should never have sold ourselves to it. So I think it's done great damage. And I say this, but I think for many in the church, I think the best thing that could happen is that every single Republican loses the next election so that there are no Republicans left anywhere in public office, from city council to mayor to governor. I don't care, president, everything, that the Republican Party ceases to exist. Now, I know people say that would be horrible for the country. I'm not here to debate that, good or bad. I'm not here to debate that. What I'm saying, it may be best for the church, because then the church would turn around and go, we have no political allies. We have nowhere to turn. We have nowhere. What are we going to do? I don't know. Well, how did Christians respond when they had no political allies, when the Roman Empire was persecuting them? What does it say about Paul taking the gospel basically to the world, that those early disciples turned the world upside down? They did so with political opposition against them. No one supporting them, being persecuted. Maybe the best thing for the American church is there's no Republican Party left. You have no political allies, and we have to turn back to, I don't know, God and spirituality instead of I said we have to look for spiritual solutions instead of political. Maybe the best thing to happen is the entire Republican Party be voted out of existence. Then the church would stop being so political. The church would stop turning to politics and patriotism, would stop worrying about making America great again and about focusing on the greatness of God and, I guess, quote unquote, allowing God to be great in the church. Now, I know those are strong comments, but I really do. And I've been saying this for a long time. So when I looked at this entire situation, I'm like, well, what can I do here? What can I do? Again, I could turn on the microphone and try to argue all of these points, but I don't know. So here's what I did. I just sat down. I grabbed my Bible. I grabbed a notebook, and I grabbed a pencil. Right? The tools that can solve all the problems in the world. A notebook, a pencil, and a Bible. All right? Okay, maybe it's a little bit hyperbole, but in this particular case, I felt like that's the only place to look. Christian podcasts are all going on, almost in a support of Trump to some level, or just blatantly in support. They're making all their assertions and claims and accusations. The anti-Trump podcasts are like, yeah, this and Trump this and okay. And so I kind of know where the world is, and I kind of know where a majority of Christians are. So I'm like, well, what can I do? So I grabbed a pencil and a Bible, and I decided that in light of Trump being found guilty of all accounts, that what I would do is I would take my Bible. There is, it's like an airplane or something flying by outside. I will take my Bible and I would write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things for us to think about as Christians. 5 things and how we should possibly approach this or not approach this as Christians, okay? Everyone's going to have their opinions. I understand this, right? Some of you are like, this is criminal what they did to Trump. And others of you are like, yes, about time. If we could just set all of that aside. If you could just set all of that aside and consider these 5 things. Are you ready? Number 1, you as an individual, you. Don't worry about your spouse. Don't worry about family members. Don't worry about neighbors. Don't even worry about other people in your church. You're probably going to hear about this the next time you go to church. People in church are probably going to be talking about this. Your pastor may make comments. It's going to be interesting. Listen to all the sermons preached on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see how many pastors make some kind of comments about it. All right. But you can report back what happens in your church on Sunday. But here's what you must decide. Forget everyone else. Here's what I must decide. We must decide, are we going to look at this entire situation with Trump being found guilty? Are we going to look at it from an earthly, fleshly, political perspective? Or are we going to try to look at this from a much more biblical, spiritual, and wise perspective? What immediately came to my mind was James chapter 3. This is what immediately came to my mind. So I grabbed my Bible and I opened it to the book of James. I found myself in chapter 3 and I read these words. James chapter 3, starting in verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Who is wise and understanding among you? Now, James is asking this question, but I gotta ask this question to myself and to the church. Where right now, everyone's gonna be like, people are so afraid that this is gonna tear the country apart. This could lead to violence, lead to a civil war. This is crazy. What is happening? People are yelling and screaming and everyone's mad and everyone's upset. Now, maybe people will move on. Maybe the situation is only gonna get worse. I'm not going to here to make any predictions, but here's what we need to say inside Christianity. Well, everyone's yelling and screaming. We need to say, everyone stop. Who is wise and understanding? We need people who have wisdom. We need to have people who have understanding to speak up, not people who are political, not people who have been politically hijacked, but people who have wisdom and understanding. And this is what James says. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let that person show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. Let our conduct reflect. Let our words, let our attitudes, and all of this dealing with Trump being found guilty, let it show that we show meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth, because that kind of wisdom that is full of bitter and enviness and self-seeking, that kind of wisdom does not descend from above, but it is earthly, sensual, and demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. We need to avoid that kind of wisdom. We need to avoid that kind of rhetoric. We need to avoid it. Let's say, I am not going to pursue a fleshly, earthly, as this refers to it as a demonic, sensual, and earthly type wisdom. We don't want an earthly, sensual, demonic kind of wisdom. We must decide, is that the kind of wisdom we're going to pursue? But instead of that, we should pursue a different kind of wisdom. And look, and James speaks of it right here. But the wisdom that is from above is pure, peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy, good fruits, without partiality, and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. We need Christians who are using this kind of wisdom, that the kind of wisdom that is from above. We need a wisdom that is pure, a wisdom that is peaceable, a wisdom that is gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy, good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy. You need to write down James chapter 3, and you need to write down that description of the wisdom that comes from above. And you need to just consider that when everyone starts talking about Trump at church, or everyone is on social media ranting and raving on what they're going to do, and this is the end of the world, you just stop. You just say, no, I'm not going to. And maybe you can just challenge them. Whoa. Let's put away the anger, the bitter, the envy, the wrath. Let's try to look at this from a biblical perspective and use the wisdom that is pure, peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Can we pursue that kind of wisdom in the midst of this? And it's only going to get worse. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just the tip of the iceberg. When we move further and further, as we move closer and closer, as we move closer and closer to the election, And who knows what happens on election day or the day after or on January the 6th. The days after are going to be even crazier, especially immediately in the aftermath of it. It's only going to get darker. It's only going to become more divisive. It's only going to become more divided. And you're going to have to choose how you're going to approach it. From the wisdom that is demonic, sensual, and fleshly, or a wisdom that comes from above that is pure, peaceable, gentle, merciful, all of those things that we just read in James 3. James 3:13 and following, read it, memorize it. Post some of that somewhere around your house where you can see it and go, that's what I'm going to try to do. Are we going to do it perfectly? No, because you know what? That wisdom that doesn't come from above, that wisdom that is sensual, earthly, and fleshly, that is inside all of us. And so many times our decisions and our ideas and thinking is completely opposite of the way we should think. It's inside of us. So I understand we're not going to do it perfectly, but can we not strive for that? So don't go from a political perspective. Stop looking at this as, us versus them, Republicans versus Democrats. Stop it. Stop even looking at it from an American perspective. Look at it from a biblical perspective. Christians first. Stop with the nationalism. Stop with that. Be theological. Be biblical. Not nationalistic, political. Now, if you want to be political and you want to be patriotic and you want to be nationalistic, then by all means, go do something outside of Christianity. Stop mixing Christianity with it. That's not the biblical approach. All right, so that's number one. We must decide which way we're going to go. Earthly, fleshly, demonic, sensual, the way James describes it, or political, or are we going to go biblical, spiritual, and seek a wisdom that comes from above? It's going to be hard. Everything around you is going to scream at you to look at it from the wisdom that doesn't come from above, from a sensual, fleshly, political, that everything around you, everything in you is going to rise up. You're going to have strong opinions. I understand your opinions may be drastically different from mine, and I may have strong opinions. But the thing is, as Christians, those things are irrelevant. What's relevant to us is biblical wisdom, not political expediency. Biblical wisdom versus political expediency. I heard some Christian podcasters do that today. Well, I mean, come on. What did we expect? We knew what we were getting with Donald Trump. We knew, sleeping with a porn star. That's not that shocking. Don't you remember the Access Hollywood tapes? Come on. We knew what we were getting. So come on. When did Christians just start saying we knew what we were getting? Like none of that even matters anymore. That's looking at something because it doesn't matter if he did all of these things. It doesn't even matter if he's guilty because politically, from a political standpoint, it's expedient. It's better for us to go with him because then we can get what we want. That's just, you're looking at it from a pragmatic, politically expedient perspective. And that's not the way we are supposed to be thinking. So you've got to decide. I cannot decide for you. Don't worry about what other people in your church is doing. Don't even worry about what your pastor is doing. Just worry about you. I can't worry about what you're going to do. I got to worry about me. I'm going to have enough problems with me because by nature, my wisdom is sensual, fleshly, demonic, and earthly. That's number one. Number two, the second thing. Now, these are things we absolutely have to stop doing. The second thing is the thing we have to absolutely stop doing. It must cease within Christianity. While the world is out there and everybody's yelling and screaming, Christians, we should just we should avoid and absolutely, completely not engage in the following. Are you ready? The first one is in Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20. Now we know we're going to fall short of these because God's law, we never obeyed God's law perfectly. But here's a pretty simple one. Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Now, what I've already seen is people making accusations against those who are on the jury. You don't even know the jurors. How can you be making accusations against them? You're bearing false witness. Many are like describing that the entire trial was masterminded by Biden. And you're like, well, wait a minute. This is not a federal case. This was a state case. But without any proof, they just make these accusations. That's bearing false witness. You may have your suspicions, but don't bear false witness. If you cannot prove it, then don't speak it. Stop with the nonsense. Stop it. Christians need to stop talking like we are Donald Trump on Truth Social. He can bear false witness all he wants. That's fine. Our marching orders don't come from Donald Trump. God says, do not bear false witness. Now, are we going to fall short of that? Absolutely. Go through all the 10 commandments. You fall short of them, and I fall short of them. But that doesn't excuse it. We got to realize wait a minute, what are we saying? Remember all the craziness that people were saying about some election workers in Georgia? Well, see, how did that find out? Found out that all those accusations were false and fraudulent, and now many people are being sued dramatically for that. Remember when Republicans were saying things and Fox News was saying things about the voting system, Dominion voting system? Oh, wait, found out all of that was false? They had to pay, $780-something million? And there's still more lawsuits out there from Smartmatic and Dominion. I remember when Christian News and American Family Radio was saying, Sidney Powell, and she's going to prove that the election was stolen. Come to find out, well, she got in trouble, and there was others, and Rudy Giuliani, and so many of their claims is just fraudulent. And many of those claims were directed towards people. When you say a company is being used to steal the election, that's going after real people. You're bearing false witness. People making claims about the jurors, making claims about the attorneys. Whoa, who are you? Do you think you're God? Stop bearing false witness. Stop. You say, well, it's just my opinion. Your opinion is you have an opinion about someone and you're making accusations. You're bearing false witness. You're going after people's motives. You're doing everything that we're not supposed to do. Don't bear false witness. Now, same thing some people do against Trump. They do that as well. Now, there are some things we can say about Trump. He's now been found guilty of felony crime. He has been held liable for sexual assault. Those are things that have been he's been found guilty of and liable for in court. Now, you may not like it, but that's at least legal declarations. Now, but you can't go and say, well, Trump was thinking this and Trump. Don't be bearing false witness against Trump. Don't be bearing false witness against Joe Biden. Don't be bearing false witness against anyone. Me, you, your kids, your neighbors. We have to avoid that. How about Ephesians chapter 4? Here's another one. These things are just absolutely forbidden. We have to stop these things. We have to help each other stop these things. I'm not going to be good at these all the time. You're not going to be good at these all the time. We're going to all fall short. But as Christians, we can try our best to work on this. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, put away lying. Let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Put away, stop spreading fraudulent and wrong information. Donald Trump has come out and said so many things, and some of the things he said are just absolutely fraudulent and false. Well, that's okay. Donald Trump can go to the microphone, lie. I don't care what Donald Trump does. But for Christians, we have to go. We can't be spreading false information. Don't bear false witness and stop spreading your lies and your misinformation. And Christians are addicted to that sometimes. And when you call them out on it, they get mad. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So now look, if this is the new Christian ethic, bearing false witness is okay, lying is okay, wrong information is okay, well, then don't go condemn people for homosexuality. If you're going to just change morality to whatever fits you, then let's just throw out all morality. Oh, no, see, now people will get mad. But the lying and the misinformation by evangelical Christians to support Donald Trump and say some of the most fraudulent and nonsensical and lying things. They did that about the election. They did that about January the 6th. We can go on and on and on and on and on. I saw a clip of Donald Trump claiming that they wouldn't call this witness. Well, your lawyer standing next to you, Donald, he could have called the witness, but you completely misrepresenting what happened. Remember when Donald Trump acted like he was not allowed to testify? No, you could have testified, but he didn't. All we have to do is just make sure we're accurate. And now we're going to get things wrong sometimes. Sometimes we're going to get it wrong. You know what we can do? Hey, man, I got that wrong. That was misinformation. But the way it starts working is, well, the only information is the information I agree with. And any information that comes from a source that I don't agree with is wrong or fake news. Come on, you can do better than that. Fake news is not defined by news that goes against what you think. The fake news could be the thing that you think. There are things called facts, logic, reason. Put away lying. Stop bearing false witness. Here's another one. The book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 10. Verse 18. Whoever hides hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. Let's stop spreading slander. Let's stop lying. Let's stop bearing false witness. Stop slandering people. Stop it. I saw this when Barack Obama was president. All the lies and the slander and the misinformation put forth by Christians. Oh, he's going to put us all in FEMA camps. They bought all of these body bags, and he's going to start killing Christians, and they're going to take the Bible, and he's going to make us all Muslim, and he's going to impose Sharia law, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do this, and he's going to take our guns, and he's going to close our churches down. And Obama was president. He left, and no one ever got my Bible. I never got put in a FEMA camp. Never got marked by the mark of the beast. All the things that I told was going to happen. Lies, 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 more lies. All by Christians. All for political reasons. Conspiratorial nonsense. Now, the same thing can happen for those against Trump. You can be making up stuff. Stop it. Can we just look, the world has lost its ever-living mind when it comes to truth and facts and logic. But the church should be like, whoa. We believe in absolute truth. We believe in speaking the truth, defending the truth. We are against spreading lies. We are against bearing false witness. We are against slander. We are against gossip. We are against all of that. Why? Because we see all people are people created in the image of God. And whether we agree or disagree with them, we're supposed to even love our enemy. And you love your enemy by not lying about them and slandering them. And guess what? That means even loving your political enemies. I know that's hard for Christians to wrap their minds around, but when it says love your enemy, that means those Democrats. That means those woke liberals. Now you can fight against their ideology. You can speak against the ideology. Just don't lie about the ideology. Don't lie about the people. I remember, I don't even know how many times when I was a teenager, brand new Christian, hearing pastors say things about and I'm dating myself, but different. I won't go through all the names of the musical artists, but saying this about this band or this pop star or their lyrics here. And you'd be like, you're just completely misrepresenting and you're lying. You're bearing false witness. You're spreading slander. You're straight up misrepresenting these artists. And I'm like, that is wrong. And I'd be like, you're supposed to love your name. Well, they're famous. They're rich. It doesn't matter. No, it matters. I don't care if they're rich or famous. You're not supposed to be spreading lies from the pulpit about people. We always got some excuse. Sometimes we get our information wrong. All we can do is correct it. That's all we can do. And not just correct it, strive to do better. But when you hear Christian relatives saying nonsense, just absolute fraudulent nonsense, call them out on it. You say, well, they may get mad. Let them get mad. Because if they claim to be a Christian, if they don't claim to be a Christian, then who cares? They don't claim to be a Christian. I don't care. Lie all they want. They can spread all the misinformation they want. They can go so far down into the QAnon conspiracy world. That's fine. But if they claim to be a believer, then they should want you to correct them, because they should want, to the best of their ability, to follow those scriptures about not bearing false witness, not slandering, not lying, not gossiping, loving your enemy. It's one of the reasons I decided to go to a Catholic university to pursue a degree in Catholic theology is not because I was Catholic or even agreed with it, because I got sick and tired of hearing pastors say nonsense about Catholicism and clearly indicating they had no desire to even understand it even a little bit. Just complete misrepresentations. You'll see, and I can't stand that. I don't care if you're talking about a Satanist. I don't care if you're talking about a Muslim. I don't care if you're talking about a Catholic, a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness. Our job is to try to accurately represent what they believe. And then we can strongly disagree, but we have to be accurate. Well, in all of this crazy political climate, everyone's an enemy. Everyone who's not on my political team is the enemy. And then we can just belittle and call names and lie and slander and bear false witness. And nobody is ever held accountable within Christianity. Non-Christianity, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking in the Christian world. American Family Radio said so many lies about the election, so many lies about the election. So many lies. I have broadcasts where I played their audio clips. They never came back to repent of that. They made all these claims about the Dominion software, Smartmatic, made all of them proven to be false. They just went silent, deleted many of those programs. They straight up just deleted them because they were going to possibly get sued, because I was doing everything like, no, you can't keep doing this. Newsmax is being sued. Fox is being sued. Because of the lies. Now, I don't care if Fox gets sued. I don't care if Newsmax gets sued. I don't care. But when it's a Christian radio network, that's where we should be like, no. We're going to be careful. We're going to be careful what we say. So when all of this is going on with Trump, just make sure no bearing false witness. Put away lying. Speak the truth. Don't speak slander. You still may think Trump is the best, but you don't need lies to defend him, do you? And don't defend his lies. So number one, we've got to decide. Is it going to be earthly, fleshly, political, or is it going to be spiritual, wise, and biblical? Number two, we have to avoid those things which are absolutely forbidden, which is bearing false witness, lying, and slander. Number three, can we try to avoid the illogical thinking that's sometimes so prevalent within Christianity about many issues pertaining to politics? Just some really crazy, illogical thinking out there. There was a time Christians were like, character matters. Character matters. We can't elect someone who has poor character. And then Trump can do 500 things, be found guilty for those things. And we're like, well, character doesn't matter. Well, does it matters or doesn't it matter? Yes or no? Here's a good example of some illogical thinking. This entire trial was a fraud. This entire trial was a kangaroo court. It's a joke. It was fraudulent. The fix was in. Trump, it was not fair. It was all against Trump. But what if a jury would have came back and said, we find Donald Trump not guilty on all accounts? Would you still be saying it's fraudulent? Either the trial was fraudulent or it's not. It can't say it's fraudulent if he's found guilty, but all of a sudden it's not fraudulent if he's found innocent. That's kind of like the playbook now. If you lose an election, oh, it's stolen. It was illegitimate. It was fraudulent. But if you win the election, oh, the American system of democracy and everyone having a vote, it's the best system in the world. The whole thing is fraudulent or it's not. I can't stand this. Like, well, if Trump loses the trial and found guilty, then the whole thing is just horrible. But if he wins, then the whole thing is great. If we win the election, oh man, the greatest system in the world. If you lose the election, the whole thing is fraudulent. That's like a kid making up rules in a game where all the rules only works for him. If he does something, well, no, that's fair. Well, if you do something that's not fair, you don't make up rules that way. Can we just be logical in our thinking? Can we hear how irrational that we can become? And all of us struggle with logical consistency. We're all guilty of logical fallacies. I think every school should teach the laws of logic and principles of logic to every kid. Because what we need more than anything are people who can understand that's a logical fallacy. That's illogical. We got to be able to see that. We have to see that. We got to think it through. This lie. Look, as Christians, we believe God gave us the brain, right? And we are to be good stewards of said brain. So can we utilize our brain to engage in logical thinking, rational thinking, and put away the illogical, conspiratorial, circular reasoning nonsense that seems to create a system where if it goes bad for Trump, then the whole thing's fraudulent. If it goes good for Trump, everything is wonderful and great. If Trump is found innocent, the jurors were brave and smart and fair individuals. But if that same jury finds him guilty, they're lying, criminal, woke, communist scum. We got to think things through a little bit better. Now, am I saying, well, everything there? See, now some people are going to jump to some conclusion. Well, it was in New York and it was New York. I understand that. You could say, well, if this wasn't Donald Trump, there's a high probability it never would have gone to court. You may be even right about that, but that's a lot of speculation. And if you're not careful, guess what you'll do? You'll start calling into question people's motives that you cannot speak of, especially as a Christian, because we are called not to judge. And that means using wrong judgment. You can't judge someone's heart or motives. You may question some of it, but still those jurors went in. And they did what they were called to do. And you may not like it. You may not like the fact that the trial, these things were brought against Trump. You may not like that. I understand that because he's your man and you want him to become president. But you got to at least start thinking about it carefully, logically. All Christians running around screaming the election was stolen. Court case after court case, investigation after investigation, no proof. And all the people who claim to have proof, when they get sued, they don't produce the proof. So number one, we got to decide earthly, fleshly, political, or biblical, spiritual, and wise. Number two, we got to avoid those things which are absolutely forbidden: bearing false witness, lying, and slander. Number three, we got to avoid just the illogical thinking that is becoming so prevalent within certain aspects of evangelicalism. Now, I think it's a cultural issue, but it's clearly an issue within evangelicalism. Now, we're never going to be perfect because we are sinners. We're flawed. We're flawed even in our thinking. But we can pursue logic to the best of our ability. Look up the most common logical fallacies are. Try to say how does that show up in your way of thinking? Let's avoid that. We may need to teach, logic and logical fallacies and what they are and how to avoid them in church. Number four. Now, that gets through some of the kind of the negative. So for about the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to try to finish this up within 10 minutes. These are going to be hopefully much more positive. While the world burns, or the world tears itself apart, or the world stumbles around into greater and greater darkness and division and divisiveness and fighting and bitterness, as believers, what we need to be doing right now, maybe more than ever, is pursuing God, not politics. You need to be turning off the politics, turning on the sermons. You need to be turning off the politics and turning on Bible study, devotionals, theology, hymns. You need to be pursuing God more than you ever have. We need a church that's becoming less political and more a church full of people who are pursuing God. Not pursuing God so that we can gain political power. Not pursuing God so that we can win the culture wars. Pursuing God because we as Christians and as sinners, we need God, and we pursue Him to grow in our knowledge of Him, our understanding to Him, to grow closer to Him. So our fellowship will be closer and stronger, that we can grow in faith, grow in grace, grow in our understanding, grow in our spirituality. We need to be pursuing God more than ever. Now, we are all going to fall short of that because we get preoccupied by so many things. All I'm going to ask you to do is all the things that you may get preoccupied by. It could be sports. It could be entertainment. It could be a million things. All of those things, what I'm going to ask you at least right now, just cut one of those things out, and that is politics. Stop being so political. Stop with the culture wars. Pursue God yourself. Stop worrying about pursuing God for everyone else. Just worry about yourself. Grow closer to God so that you become more humble, more broken. Grow closer to God, not so that you see the sins of everyone else, but because you become consumed and broken over your own sins. Pursue God so you see your flaws, you see your failures, you see your need. Stop pursuing God so that you can somehow win a political argument. Pursue God just so that you can get closer to God. Because the closer you get to God, the more you will see yourself as you really are. And you will see your flaws, your sin, your pride, your issues. Pursue God. Buy you a new physical Bible if you need to. Whatever it will take. You delete whatever political apps, or if you need to turn off the news, whatever, just get alone with God. Use the Sermons 2.0 app. Listen to sermons. Just listen to live webcasts. Read classic Christian books. Read the church fathers. Just do devotionals throughout the day. Just fill yourself with scripture. Start a Bible memory program. Do whatever you got to do. Pursue God at all cost. So number one, we got to decide, is it going to be earthly, fleshly, political approach, or are we going to pursue a spiritual, biblical, and wise approach? Number two, we got to absolutely 100%, absolutely we have to avoid. Those things are absolutely forbidden, which is bearing false witness, lying, and spreading slander. Number 3, we have to avoid illogical thinking. Number 4, we have to pursue God with everything inside of us. Pursue Him. Don't pursue make America great again. Pursue I need to be broken before a holy God again. And then lastly, if you're concerned about your country, if you're concerned about everything, do less talking to people, do less complaining, and spend more time on your face before God in prayer and fasting. Pray. Pray. Now you want to pray to maybe for God to fix the culture, fix the country. Ask God to fix you. Ask God for you to be convicted about your flaws. When you come to God first saying, Lord, I present me, a sinner, before you. And before I pray for anything else, break me, humble me, bring conviction to me about my issues. And then say, Lord, I'm worried about society. I'm worried about the culture. And then pray about it. Pray about the election if you're concerned about it. Pray about the country. And fast. And during that time of fasting, add extra prayer and an extra time in Scripture where you're reading, and meditating, and thinking. But make it about your spiritual growth. Now, I know this approach is going to be not how most podcasters are going to handle this today. They're going to be yelling and screaming. This is a travesty, a crime. They're going to be like, get out and vote. This is the most important election in the history of mankind. You got to get out and vote. You got to get people in your church. You got to get people in your Sunday school. We got to vote. Because, all of a sudden electing Donald Trump is the end goal all of a sudden. Where the end goal for the Christian is never a political election. No, we're in the Bible. Where do you see? Go therefore and vote. You must vote. There's nothing in here about that. They wouldn't have understood that concept. Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. Pursue Him. Go out and evangelize, not on political matters, but on teaching the law of God so people can see their sin. Once they see their sin, you present the gospel to them, baptize them, then disciple them and what they're to do. That's what we're called to do. We're to be equipped as Christians so we're no longer tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine so that we can do the work of ministry. But we've turned somehow our ministry into voting and politics and America and our country. Christianity transcends national identity. Christianity transcends your country. It's not about America. It's not about Republicans. It's about pursuing God so that we can give the gospel to other people. That's what it's supposed to be about. I know we all lose that. But we got to stop this that Christianity is being supplemented. Christianity is being hijacked. Christianity is being replaced by this politicized morality. It's politicized morality. And this disguise of Christianity. Christianity is just the disguise. It's just really a politicized morality. There you have it. You can email me, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. I don't know if those points are going to make a difference. I don't even know if this is going to make a difference. But I know there's going to be a million voices. I just wanted to try to offer somewhat of a different perspective. Some of you are going to accuse me of being anti-Trump. Someone may accuse me of being pro-Trump. You guys fight that. That's your world. I have nothing to do with it. I have no care about the political. The political world can burn to the ground. I don't care. I told you what I think from a spiritual standpoint. The best thing that could happen to the church is every Republican voted out of office and there's no Republican Party left. It's completely gone. And then people are, what do we do? I don't know. Maybe now you turn to God and the Bible. I don't know. Maybe a shocker. You don't have Washington to help you. What do you do? Some look to chariots and horses to win the battle. Some look to the Lord their God. Paraphrase of a psalm, you can probably find it. Oh, people get very angry at me because I don't vote, ladies and gentlemen. I don't vote. I have no desire to be a part of that political mess. There's no solutions there. There's nothing there. I have no desire to be a part of that. So don't accuse me of taking a side. The church needs to do what the church is called to do, no matter who's in office. You say, well, this person may help us more than this. So your help comes from Washington? And look, there's times... and I'll end with this just to show you. I do understand. Look, from my fleshly perspective, I can get nervous sometimes, right? Because look, my whole livelihood, my life is dependent upon the federal government, right? My military retirement and my disability, being 100% disabled because of what happened to me when I was in the United States military, my life is dependent upon that. Well, you know what? I could look to see which political party, I don't care about anything else, which political party could possibly give a pay raise to military retirees and possibly increase the disability payment for those of us who are 100% disabled or give us great other benefits. I could choose which one is more likely to possibly do that. I think typically we would say Republicans are probably more likely to do that and just vote a straight Republican ticket for my own selfish reason. I could do that if I wanted to. But then I get involved in the politics and I don't ever want to be, no one can accuse me of being on a political side. Sometimes I get nervous going, oh boy, I hope that person doesn't cut our military retirement or take away disability benefits or I'm in trouble. I'm done. I'm finished. And you may have your reasons for voting the way you do. And I'm not telling you you're wrong to vote. Don't get me wrong. If you want to vote, that's okay. That's a privilege you have living in the United States of America. And I served in the United States military to defend that right and that privilege. But there's no biblical mandate for me to do so. And I've heard Christians try to find it. You talk about twisting scripture into knots. No, there's no command for me to do so. It's a privilege. You may say, well, it's a responsibility. You may say that, but there is no law saying I have to do it, and there's no scripture. So I just have stayed out of it because I believe all these times we vote and we're going to fix all of the problems don't get fixed because the real problem is the human heart, and it's called depravity. And the only hope is the gospel. I'm more worried about Christians turning to politics instead of Christians turning to Christ. Because I know I can't speak for you. I don't have a problem turning to politics. I can't speak for you. I have no problem turning to politics. I have no desire for it, hate it, can't stand it, nothing to do with it. So I'm good to go there. I've got other problems. Okay? My issue isn't politics. I have other issues. I have other things I struggle with, right? I have my own sin and struggles. Whatever you do, just try to remember the things that I've outlined today. Email me, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. I went 3 minutes and 20 seconds over time. I apologize. You can cut that out of the money you're going to give me for doing this wonderful broadcast. All right? Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm joking. I could make a joke about some fundraising happening because of the verdict, but we won't go into that. All right? And I will say this. I'm hearing a lot of Christians saying, if they did this to Trump, they could do this to you. All I would say is, let's not use hyperbole and exaggerate. And I'm the first person to use hyperbole, but let's not use it in this case. Let's be reasonable. If you don't want a jury to come after, or if you don't want a court system to come after you, then, there's some possible things you could avoid. Don't have an affair with a porn star. Don't try to cover it up with hush money. And don't try to cover it up for hush money to somehow hurt your chances of becoming the president of the United States of America. There's a good chance they won't come after you. Now, some say this is the weaponizing. I just say just be reasonable in how you talk about that. If there's an abuse in the system, then that abuse needs to be pointed out. I am all for that. Just saying, let's not jump to some conclusion that since they come after Trump, that next 5 minutes from now, you're going to be brought up on charges of sleeping with a porn star and trying to cover it up with hush money. I doubt you're going to probably ever be accused of that. Now, you may be accused of something else. And if we believe the legal system is being misused, then by all means, we do need to speak against that. We do. And if you believe that this trial is somewhat politically motivated, then okay. Our system, we could get into a whole issues about our systems and how some district attorneys can be, we can get into a whole host of issues there. But you know what? That could go both sides, right? If you're going to complain about for Trump, then you got to complain when some liberal is being put on trial in a conservative state. You got to, well, that's not fair to that poor liberal. Right? I mean, so like I was just saying, we just got to be reasonable and think these things through and not jump to, we're all going to be put in jail tomorrow because they came after Trump. They're going to come after. I mean, let's just try to be thoughtful. We can at the same time point out possible problems in the system and be willing to acknowledge some issues. But then we got to be willing to fix those problems for everyone. All right. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. God bless.